Your report says 3BC. Somewhere online, someone else's says 4AA. And even though you don't fully know what either of those mean, you already feel like you know which one is better and which one you got. Your stomach has already made a decision your brain hasn't caught up to yet. Here's the promise of this video. By the end, you'll know exactly what every letter and number in that code is measuring, and why a grade that looks less than perfect isn't the small disaster it feels like right now. Let's start with the one thing you need to hear before anything else. A lower-looking grade is not a rejection. Pregnancies happen from 3 BCs, they happen from 2 BBs. The code you're looking at describes an appearance, not a prophecy, and once you know what it's actually built to measure, that starts to make a lot more sense. So let's break the code apart, piece by piece. The number usually somewhere between 1 and 6 describes expansion. It's simply how far the blastocyst has grown and filled out by the day it was checked, usually day 5 or 6. Think of it like a balloon slowly filling with fluid. A 1 or 2 is still fairly compact. A 4 or 5 has expanded and started thinning its outer shell, and a 6 is often already hatching out of that shell entirely. A higher number generally means it's expanded further along in that specific moment, on that specific day. It's a measurement of size and stage, not of promise. An embryo checked an hour later might already show a different number than the one written on your report. The first letter grades something called the inner cell mass, the small cluster of cells that could go on to become the baby. Embryologists look at how tightly packed and organized those cells appear under the microscope and grade them A, B, or C based on that appearance alone. A meaning many cells, tightly grouped, B meaning a looser or smaller grouping, C meaning few cells or a less distinct cluster. The second letter grades the trophectoderm, the outer layer of cells that would go on to form the placenta. Same idea, same scale. How many cells, how evenly arranged they look under the microscope on that image, graded the same A, B, or C. So a 4AA means well expanded, inner cell mass looking tightly organized, outer layer looking tightly organized too. A 3BC means a little less expanded at that specific check, inner cell mass looking fine, outer layer looking a bit less organized on that particular image. That's genuinely all the code is saying. Here's what it's not saying. It's not measuring genetics. Whether an embryo has the right number of chromosomes is a completely separate question, decided by a completely different process, and grading alone can't answer it. That requires genetic testing, if that's part of your plan. A beautifully graded 4AA can still turn out to have a chromosomal difference, and a modestly graded 3BC can turn out to be chromosomally typical. The two measurements simply aren't looking at the same thing. Grading also isn't measuring your embryo's worth, your body, or anything you did before or during this cycle. It's a physical description of one image, read by one embryologist on one day. And here's something worth knowing before you compare notes with anyone else. Grading isn't perfectly standardized across the field. Every clinic follows a similar general system, built on the same basic idea, but there's real human judgment involved in every single letter. One embryologist's confident B might be another's C on the exact same embryo, viewed on the exact same day. Even within one lab, grading can vary slightly depending on who's looking and exactly when they looked. Comparing your report to a stranger's post online isn't just discouraging, it's genuinely not comparing the same measurement made under the same conditions by the same person. So, what does a grade actually correlate with? In large studies, higher grades are loosely associated with somewhat higher average implantation rates across big groups of patients. Notice the word average. That statistic describes a population spread across thousands of cycles, not your specific embryo, and definitely not your specific outcome. Plenty of individual pregnancies come from embryos with grades nowhere near the top of the scale, and plenty of top-graded embryos don't implant at all. A grade shifts a probability slightly, in aggregate, across large numbers of people you'll never meet. It doesn't decide anything on its own, for any one embryo, in any one cycle, including yours. If your grade came back lower than you hoped, here's a more useful question then: is this bad? Ask your embryologist to walk you through your specific report. A few things worth actually asking. How does this grade compare to others from your own retrieval, not a stranger's? What does your clinic's own data show for embryos in this general range? And does this change anything about the transfer plan you'd already discussed? They can tell you how your grade fits into your own picture, not a forum's, and what, if anything, it changes about next steps. That conversation will tell you far more than any grading chart, video, or comment section ever could. You're also allowed to simply not become fluent in embryology overnight. You don't need to memorize what every combination of numbers and letters means to make informed decisions about your own care. That's genuinely what your care team is there for. One more thing worth saying plainly. It's completely normal to have looked up your grade the moment you got it. Alone, at an hour you'd rather not admit to. That instinct to understand what's happening to you makes complete sense. It just doesn't always lead anywhere calming, which is exactly why a clearer picture, in plain language, tends to help more than another late-night search. This video offers general, educational information about embryo grading, not personalized medical interpretation. For what your specific grade means for your specific embryo and your specific plan, your clinic's embryology team is the only source that can actually answer that. If you've seen your own grade, was it clearer once you understood what each letter was measuring? Or did it raise a new question you're still sitting with? If you're moving through IVF, one uncertain number at a time, Embryo is here to help you feel more informed, more supported, and less alone. Subscribe, and we'll keep working through each stage together. Next time, we'll talk about the wait after transfer, the days between the procedure and the blood test, and why that particular stretch of time tends to feel heavier than almost any other part of this process. A grade describes what an embryo looked like on one day. It was never meant to describe what happens next.